You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. The food that we find most satisfying. The food that we find that sticks to our ribs. The food that we call down home. Or food that we learn to eat in the quarters. And yet we dare say that we have escaped slavery. What kind of food do you eat? You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. What kind of food do you eat? You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. What kind of food do you eat? You say soul food?
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? This is Motivational Monday. Damon K. Jones. And good evening. Good evening. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. And we are live on Instagram. And what's up, everybody? I see everybody. What's happening? And this is Motivational Monday. And this Monday, we have a guest coming on today. His name's Brother Dr. Cedrick. And he has written a book called The 7 Steps to Prevent Chronic Disease. Y'all check it out. Definitely get this book. It's a great book by a great brother who is your self-care advocate, because brother works in the medical industry and he advocates that we should be able to take care of ourselves and what's up, and use, as I say, our kitchen as a medicine cabinet. So I'm waiting for the brother to log in, but I hope everybody has enjoyed their Juneteenth holiday. They have recognized Juneteenth, and they gave Black folks a day off. They gave Black folks a day off. They gave Black folks a holiday that recognizes the travesty of slavery and oppression. So we get a holiday, and some of us who work today got holiday pay. Can't beat that, can you? Can't beat getting some holiday pay. But with all seriousness, we should have more holidays. How we were treated in this country for 400 years is less than human, free labor, and we thankful for this holiday, but we need to start talking about reparations for the day. Also, if you check the YouTube channel, please go to Damon K. Jones on YouTube and follow the page. I just put up a video this week discussing why men, especially men, should fall back off eating processed foods. Men that eat mostly processed foods, 2 things happen. They have abnormal sperm, the shape of a sperm and sperm count, and also there an increase in erectile dysfunction among men who eat processed meat. I don't know if a lot of people have noticed lately, especially on social media ads, that all the erectile dysfunction and ED advertising, there are young men, right? They're using younger men. You know, when Viagra first came out, it was something that, you know, men over 65 and 70 would be targeted, but now with these new medications for ED, you know, they're using young men in these commercials because more young men are coming down with ED and they're eating all this processed foods and they're having bad diets, and it's causing ED. So the easiest way, as always, to just pop a pill, right? You pop a pill and you go to work instead of looking at the causes and addressing the causes of erectile dysfunction. And a lot of times the causes of erectile dysfunction is could be stress, but a lot of times it's the diet also that we have. So um, I'm still waiting on Dr. Cedrick to log in so we could have this conversation. But you could also go to blackwestchester.com in the health and wellness section. You could also go to blackwestchester.com in the health and wellness section, and you could check out the article that I wrote about men being aware of processed meat, because that stuff will definitely kill you in the long term. That's why it's good to have more vegetables, more fruit and vegetables in your diet, and make sure that you at least exercise 30 minutes a day, preferably some calisthenics, some body weight exercises. You can also use weight as we get older. Men, we get in our 50s, we lose the same muscle mass that we had in our 20s and 30s. So it's also good to use some type of weight exercises. You don't have to go heavy like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but also use some to continue to build your muscle mass. It's harder to build muscle mass as you get older. Our testosterone levels decrease, so it's also good to take a good natural some type of testosterone supplement to keep our levels up. But it's also good to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables to help keep our blood flow. As you get older, the blood flow is important. Is very important to men health and wellness. Trying to see where my brother's at so we could have this conversation. Let me text him. So, but anyway, today was Meatless Monday. How many people actually went today without eating any meat, eating only fruits and vegetables one day out of the week? You take the time to fill your body with fresh fruits and vegetables. How many people did that today, right? Took the time out and was mindful not to eat any meat. So, and I hope people took that time to do it. It's one day out of the week, so we could have that. So, like I said, on July 8th, Saturday, July 8th, at the Mount Vernon Public Library, my brother Dr. Cedrick at 11 a.m. we'll have a book signing, and we're going to do a question and answering. If you're on Instagram, if you're watching on Instagram, you really can't see the screen, but my brother Dr. Cedrick will be at the Mount Vernon Library Saturday, July 8th, for a book signing and questioning answering about his book, the 7 steps to prevent chronic disease. We know in our community, we are leading in all the chronic illnesses: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes. And we also are dealing with food deserts in a lot of Black communities throughout the nation. So we are getting hit twofold. So how do we combat that, and how do we address that? And Dr. Cedrick is going to, the self-care advocate, my brother, Dr. Cedrick, he's going to talk about that, things that we can do that he put in his book, the 7 steps that he actually put in his book. And we're going to have a short talk today when the brother comes on to actually discuss that. We're not going to get in. Good evening, Rosa. How you doing, sis? We're not going to get into it, but on July 8th, we're just going to give people a taste of the conversation when the brother logs in. But July 8th at the Mount Vernon Public Library, Dr. Cedrick, your self-care advocate, will be there, and we're going to have an in-depth conversation about the 7 steps to prevent chronic disease at 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the Mount Vernon Public Library. So save the date. If you are around Mount Vernon, you're in Mount Vernon, or if you're around Mount Vernon, definitely come. If Dr. Cedrick will be signing on soon. If you want to see the full view, if you want to see the full view, if you want to see the full, if you want to see the full view with Dr. Cedrick, please go to YouTube or Facebook. Go to my page, or you could go to the group called the Health Mindset, and it's live on both pages. You could go to my page, and then you could see you could actually see the full video with Dr. Cedrick. Dr. Cedrick hit me, said he's logging on. Think the brother. Oh, there go the brother. There go the brother. There go the brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me just fix my camera. I apologize. I was in another meeting that normally ends right at 8, but they just kept going, and so I decided that I would leave a little earlier than.
It's all right, brother. Not a problem. I'm glad to have you. I was telling the people that are watching, and if you're watching on Instagram, please go over to YouTube. If you want to see the full view of the video with Dr. Cedrick, go over to YouTube, go over to Damon K. Jones on YouTube, or go to Damon K. Jones on Facebook, or you could go to the Health Mindset group on Facebook, and we will be live there. So, brother, thank you for coming.
It's my privilege. Thank you.
We're not going to get deep, because I want to leave something for July 8th for those who will be coming to the Mount Vernon Public Library on July 8th. But this is a great book, man, and you're giving it to them straight. You're definitely giving it to them straight. For those who are logging on, brother Dr. Cedrick will be at the Mount Vernon Public Library Saturday, July 8th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And we're going to have a book signing. We're going to have an actual discussion back and forth, talking about his book, talking about him being a self-care advocate. So let me ask you a question, brother. What gave you the idea to write this book?
Yes, sir. Great question, Brother Jones. So I grew up in the church, and I grew up back home in Rochester, New York. And that's really important to this story, to this answer, because when I would go to worship on Sundays, half the prayers more than half of the prayers that people would ask for were about health. Brother Jones and his diabetes, Aunt Mabel and her blood sugar and high blood pressure, all of these things. And And so early on in my life, I knew that something wasn't quite right with this picture. And so, among other things, that image was what inspired me to pursue a career in healthcare. Now, I
Mm.
ended up getting my doctorate of pharmacy in 2013. And one of the first things that I did, I was spurred on by a young lady that I was interested in at the time. She also encouraged me. She said, "Well, why don't you put together a seminar instead of talking about it? You know, teach your church." And so I did. My very first presentation was on diabetes. It was titled "Understanding Diabetes." And then another congregation, a sister congregation of ours, the Lawson Road Church of Christ, heard, they caught wind of this, and they asked me to come, but they wanted me to talk about, I believe, cholesterol or heart disease. And so, once I did that, people seemed to like it. Then another congregation caught wind of this. And so I was getting requests to talk about certain chronic diseases. Along the way, I spoke at Central Church of Christ, again, another congregation of the Churches of Christ. They're kind of close knit. And the preacher's wife is big into holistic health. And she put me in touch with this brother who had written a book called Death to Diabetes. Okay.
Mm.
And his story was he was close to death. He actually fell into a coma with blood sugar above 1,000. And they
Mm.
wanted to amputate his legs, all of that fun stuff. But at the last moment, his mom, his elderly mother, gave him a Bible verse, uh, you know, that said the life of the body is in the blood. So that gave him a clue that, wait a minute, instead of cutting off my leg, well, let me just study what's going on with my blood. And so he was actually an engineer. So he's used to analyzing things and looking at things from the tiniest unit, and trying to make sense of there. And
Right.
so his name, by the way, is Brother Dwayne McCulley. So he became a diabetes expert and selling his books all over the world. But um, anyways, the way he started out was by once he was able to reverse his diabetes in a matter of months, right? By identifying the foods. I mean, this brother was testing himself more than 2 or 3 times a day, right? He would eat something and test
Right.
himself. And before long, he had this whole chart of which foods sent his blood sugar, spiked his blood sugar, right? And so he just eliminated all those foods, right? All those refined foods and processed food. And he pretty much went plant-based, right?
Right.
And
Right. Right.
he was taking, supplements and drinking water, cut out all the sodas and juices. And guess what? In a matter of months, he was diabetic free. And so he felt the calling to share this because, especially in the Black community, this is an epidemic, right? And it's growing. So he put together this presentation about his experiences, and he would travel around Rochester until he blew up big. And now he teaches doctors how to approach this. But anyways, he had made his way to different churches, including that same congregation, the Central Church of Christ in
Mm.
Rochester, New York, but years earlier, much earlier. And so when I had the privilege to present on diabetes, boom, it sent a signal to the preacher's wife, who's big on holistic health. She comes up to me. She goes, "Have you heard of Dwayne McCulley?" I said, "No, ma'am, I haven't." She tells me his story, happened to have his number, gave me the number. I called the brother. He's so busy he didn't answer, so I just left a voice message. A few months later, he calls me back, which was I was very thankful. And we were just talking, and he told me, look, he quit engineering. Now he just does that full time. He's
Mm.
trying to get people to understand you can reverse diabetes. He's teaching doctors and health professionals how to, implement his protocol. And I told him about what I was doing. And, he told me this years ago. Listen, you need to write a book, right? And,
Mhm.
and his point was, I'm an engineer who's teaching people how to reverse diabetes. You're a whole pharmacist.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
probably have a little bit more experience because that's your field of expertise. And I said, you're right. Unfortunately, Brother Damien, I slept on that. I let life happen, which means I
Right.
let the worries of the world, I was working, ended up getting married. And ultimately, it was just in the midst of the pandemic that, I said, look, I've had this vision for years, okay? And, now we got a whole pandemic. How nice would it have been if I had my book, if I had put my ideas pen to paper, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
felt that, you know what? I'm tired of putting aside. I took 2 weeks out of work, and I asked my wife. We have a daughter. She was a newborn at the time. I asked my wife, please just take care of her. Don't let her bother me. I'll be in the office for the next 2 weeks. I'll be living here, right?
Right.
I knew what
Right.
I was going to write about. I knew what I wanted to say. I just had to get a lot of references. I didn't want it to be a book on what I thought or what I
Right.
think. I wanted to be
Right.
a book that is scientific but very easy to understand. So there's a whole bunch of references in the back of the book. So everything in here that you're reading is very much scientific, right?
Right.
But
Right.
it steers towards a holistic approach, right?
Right.
Adopting a holistic lifestyle to prevent chronic disease. And so that is the story in a nutshell of what inspired me, or rather, who inspired me to write this book. It was that brother Dwayne McCulley. He planted the seed. Unfortunately, I let the cares of the world and everything else that was happening just sort of keep me from actually sitting down and doing it. But I'm very thankful that my wife was able to play defense, because my daughter loves me, boy. She just can't be away from me. So
That's
my
what's up.
wife played defense long enough for me to have some time and just put pen to paper and write this book.
That's great. That's great, brother. You talk about um, the present day medical model. Now, is the present day medical model working? And how does that relate to the holistic model that more people like myself, you, and more other people are starting to be vocal about? What are the contrasts?
Yes, sir. Great question, Brother Damien. So, and this is very important. People have to understand, and I always, whenever I want to talk about the current medical model that we in the United States have, and not just the United States, much of the developed world, right? Whenever I talk about it, I always want to start by saying this. First of all, we have some of the best trained doctors in the world, okay? The level of training that they receive is bar none, okay? We have some of the most innovative companies. I mean, we've got drugs for everything. We've got
Right.
machines. If I were to get into a car accident, God forbid, I would, there is no other country I would love to be in than America, okay? Because we've got everything, okay?
Right.
Every machine, every tool, we can bring you back to life, right? Those are traumatic injuries, right? Physical
Right.
injuries.
Right.
We're top dog in that field,
Right.
surgeries and everything. Now, I want to preface that by saying this. When it comes to lifestyle diseases, okay, people have to understand the difference between a physical trauma and something that arose as a result of how you live. I
Mm.
want to make that contrast. People have to understand that our healthcare system is not equipped to handle that. Now, that's a mighty bold statement that I just made, but I want to provide some evidence, okay? We simply need to look at statistics to determine whether or not what I am saying is true, okay? And so, what are these statistics? Well, let's take a look at Exhibit A. Today, 6 in 10 adults in this country have a chronic disease. Okay. Within that 6 in 10, 4 in 10 adults have 2 or more chronic diseases.
Mm.
Okay. Now, it doesn't stop there. 7 in 10 deaths each year in this country is due to chronic diseases. So these people are not dying because their time is up, or, they got into a car accident, or they were robbed and shot, God forbid, but they're dying because of the lifestyle that they've lived. Okay. And so these statistics are shocking. Now, let's look at something that affects the cost, right? It affects us all because we're paying for this, whether it be through taxes or direct cost. Okay. In 2020, in the United States, we spent 4.1 trillion with a T, $4.1 trillion on healthcare alone. Okay. The majority of that, about 85 to 90% of that, was for treating chronic diseases.
Wow.
Okay. So the overwhelming majority of all the healthcare costs, people are always complaining about, oh, healthcare is so expensive, la-di-da. The majority of the money we're spending is to treat chronic diseases. Now, let's take a look at what we have to show for all that. Now, I said trillion with a T, y'all. I didn't say billion, okay?
Right.
For all of that spending that we're spending annually, not over a period of time, on a year, okay? That's about 18% of our GDP. For all of that spending, when you look around, look in your family, look in your neighborhood, look in your community, look at your job, look in your school, what do you see? Well, let me tell you what you see. People are getting sicker.
That's right.
People are getting fatter, and
That's
people
right.
are taking more medications.
That's right.
So you should be able to judge a system based on the outcome or the output that is evident. So when you see people getting sicker, when you see people getting fatter, when you see people getting on more medications, that is the result of the system we currently have. So again, I want to make that stark contrast. We have an excellent system when it comes to trauma. Okay, it's called heroic medicine, but our system is ill-equipped, unable to stop the growing trend of chronic disease, because that's like trying to use a rock to punch in a nail, right? You're going to bend it the wrong way. It's not suited for it, right? It's trying to fit a square in a round hole. It's not suited for, you can force it and squeeze it, but you're just going to break the Legos. So we have to be real and be realistic. Everybody's getting sicker. Everybody's getting fatter. Everybody's getting all these mental issues, but everybody's on more medications. So it seems to me the winners are the ones that are making the medications.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, as opposed to the system that I am putting forth, right? I think this is a system that both you and I are advocating. It is a system, in short, of self-care. And so this system is actually what we put forth as an alternative, or as the answer to what we are experiencing today. Now, it actually gets deeper than that, Brother Jones. Check this out. Even when we look at diabetes, let's take diabetes, which everybody is familiar with. Mm-hmm. In 1960, 1% of the adult population was diabetic. 20 years later, in 1980, 2% of the adult population was diabetic. By 2020, 40 years later, 11.4% of the population is diabetic, right? So it's an exponential climb. Now, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Even though 11.4% of the population today is considered diabetic, remember, 38% of adults are considered pre-diabetic.
Right.
You see what I mean? So that means if you line 10 people up, 4 of them are pre-diabetic. And the funny thing is, most of them don't even know it.
Right. Right.
Right. So you have a system where you have people that think they're healthy, but they can't tell, they can't feel that things are going wrong. And so it's funny when somebody just one day they go to the doctors and they say, "Oh, you're diabetic." They're like, "Well, when 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 were the signs?" Well, brother, you were. The signs were there all along, right?
Exactly.
And so people act like they just caught it, like they caught a cold, like somebody sneezed, and I woke up with a cold. It wasn't my fault. No, you were a participant in a lifestyle that put you at risk for this particular chronic condition. And so
Right.
one of the reasons I call it self-care, right? A system of self-care, or a self-care system, or the name of my book is Self-Care Advocate, is because it involves a sense of responsibility. You have to be preemptive about your health, protective about your health, and proactive about your health.
That's right.
You have got to be, yes, sir, you have got to be so interested about your health that you're asking the right questions, that you're paying attention when things start acting out of sync, right? You don't just kick the can down the road, so that when, God forbid, you're diagnosed with something, you're not like, what? What? How? Lord, help me. It's like, wait a minute. He didn't make you drink the soda. Had nothing to do with the man.
Exactly.
And so that is the system that I am advocating, because ultimately, you have a lot of noble people out there that feel that, well, we can turn this ship around, we can get the healthcare system. I think that's going to be very difficult, because you've got too many minds that are entrenched in a particular way. And so to steer the ship, it's going to take a lot of decades, generations even, to change things, because any industry that's making money off the current system is likely going to resist change. Let's be honest. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. It's too much money involved.
It's too much money involved. And I think people have to wisen up to understand the realities of the world. Okay. And so I just wanted to and I want to give people an illustration, because I want them to understand this. Listen, if you have a yard, you have a front yard or backyard, and you take care of your yard, you like to mow your grass and trim it, keep it nice, looking good. And all of a sudden you find weeds. If you just take your lawnmower and go over those weeds, what do you notice the very next day?
That they grow back.
That they grow back, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a never-ending battle, because you can mow those weeds again. What do you see the next day?
Exactly.
They grow back, right? So it is a never-ending battle. Now, one of your neighbors is looking at you doing this thing day in and day out, and he's thinking, Damon, it's kind of silly, brother. Why are you doing this?
Exactly.
And what he would probably tell you is, put on some gloves, get down and dig down, uproot them, pull them up by the root, right? And then put the right seeds back in that spot, so that come tomorrow and the days thereafter, you have grass, right? That seems to be a logical solution to that weed problem that you have, right? But check this out. Let's use healthcare in that same scenario. Okay? You have high blood pressure. You go to your doctor. Now, mind you, the average medical visit lasts only 12 to 15 minutes. So there's no way on earth that doctor, no matter how smart, how caring, there's no way they can go over what you've eaten over the last 6 months, let alone year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's no way. There's not enough time, because the system does not reward that. And so that doctor is going to give you a medication that's going to lower your blood pressure, right? But what happens the next day? What happens to your blood pressure? It goes back up, correct?
Exactly.
And so you take the medication again, and you do this for years and years and years. Now, of course, you increase your risk of side effects. Every medication has a side effect.
Exactly.
Okay. And sometimes the side effects will manifest as just new conditions.
Exactly. To give you more medication.
And I always say this, listen, in my experience, I have never seen someone go from 5 medications to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to no medications. What I do see, and what everybody in healthcare sees, is people going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and so on in
Exactly.
terms of the number of drugs.
Exactly.
So you are growing sicker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Metabolically out of sync, and of course you're you're getting more medicated. So
Right.
the
Right.
makers of the medications are the real winners in this system,
Mm.
not you, the individual. And so it becomes our individual responsibilities, because again, the system's not going to change overnight. In fact, we're spending almost 90% of healthcare spending on chronic diseases. We spend less than 1% on prevention and preventative services. Think about that. Think about where our priorities are with this system. And so I am an advocate for self-care advocate, as in people have got to stop being victims. First, victims mentally. You've got access to the internet, right? You've got access to a lot of people, a lot of podcasts, a lot of health coaches, a lot of holistic programs out there that you can look into as far as learning what could be a potential solution to your problem. Okay.
Right.
And so that's the first step in becoming a self-care advocate. It's the understanding that wisdom and knowledge is perhaps the most valuable things and could even save your life.
Right. Right.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Right. Thank you, brother. I think, man, you laid it out. Now, you also talk about hydrating, the importance of hydrating. Please expound on that. We have a few minutes left because I don't want to go too deep, because I want people to come to the library. Um, I want people to come to the library and see this brother and hear this brother, because he has this book is a wealth of information. And just a few minutes that you talked, brother, you opened up my eyes to different things. But talk about the importance of hydrating. I tell my wife all the time, I text her, I said, make sure you drink water. Make sure you drink water. Make sure you drink water. She works a lot. She works a lot of overtime. We're caught in this type of world and lifestyle where we work long hours, man, 16, 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
There's people in law enforcement that work 24 hours if they're trying to solve a homicide or something.
And it's high stress.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to really be mindful of hydrating through that whole time. So talk about the importance of hydration.
Yes, sir. So hydration is the second step in our program, what I call the self-care 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, hydration is the third step in what I call the self-care 7, which is our program. So the hydration is so important for your body because it literally affects every cell in your body. Okay. It affects every cell. It affects every organ. It affects every organ system. Now, when we talk about hydration, you know what comes to mind? Thirst, right? People think, well, just make sure you drink plenty of fluids. Well, before you decide what type of fluid to drink, take a look at the standard settings of the body, right? First, you've got to understand the body is 65% water.
That's right.
Now, the life of the body is in the blood. Okay, the blood is about 95% water. So that gives us a clue for how to maintain our system, right? That's a clue, right? Like you didn't make that, right? I didn't make that. That's how the creation was. That's the standard setting, right? Factory setting is that majority of the body is water. The majority of the blood is water. The overwhelming majority of the blood is water. So that tells us a clue as far as what is required to maintain this system. Okay? Because you start putting the wrong fuel or the wrong fuel type in the wrong car, you're going to have problem. The car might run, but
Exactly.
the engine might blow up a little quicker,
Exactly.
right? It might start smoking a little bit, right? And so you might start having sputtering and hearing noises and everything. That's because you're putting the wrong type of fuel in the car that you have. And so the clue as to what type of fluid we should be getting is what the standard factory setting is, and that's water. Okay, now, unfortunately, well, it may be fortunate, I don't know, but today, when someone goes to satisfy their thirst, they've got options. Okay, you've got teas, you've got coffees, you've got juices, you've got sweetened juices, you've got everything, right? Fruit juices, all this stuff. Okay, and so those options are good because a lot of them contain sugar, right? And who doesn't like a little bit of flavor? But we've got to come to the understanding that, wait a minute now, the body doesn't really need any of those things. If I spend the rest of my life and I never drink coffee, guess what, Damon? I could live to 100. If I spend the rest of my life and I never drink juice, I could live to 100. If I spend the rest of my life and I never drink milk, I could live to 100. But I barely make it past 40 if I go without water.
Exactly.
Okay? Because things start breaking down. Okay? Blood pressure is related to water or a lack thereof. Diabetes, blood sugar is related to enough water or the lack thereof. Constipation, you name it. There's a whole host of chronic conditions that are exaggerated, even accelerated, due to the lack of adequate water in the system, right? And you got to look at it like this. Imagine you're standing on a cliff, okay? You're near the edge. And let's say somebody said, look, 7 steps and then you fall. You got 7 steps before you fall off the cliff.
Right.
Okay? You got to understand that the way in which you live will actually push you closer to that cliff's edge. You see what I'm saying? And not drinking enough water is taking a step towards that ledge, right? Now, you can say, well, I'm thirsty, therefore I'm going to drink juice and that'll quench my thirst. Yes, there is some water in juice, but there's also sugar and a whole bunch of other things, right? Now, that's fine. You need energy and everything, and you need some antioxidants. If it's like a natural fruit juice, that's well and good, but the body can get all that from food. You see what I mean? Right? It can get all that from the calories, from breaking down the fruits or the foods and whatnot. But when you're thirsty, what the body's trying to tell you is, brother, we need water. Why? Because water is one of those key things. It lubricates your organs. It controls your temperature. It helps convert food to energy. Even digestion relies and depends on water. Okay? It helps with your skin. And you've got to remember something. The body is constantly losing water. Okay? So on a hot day such as today, you go outside for a couple of minutes and you're sweating. Well, that's water. In fact, you're actually using the water and using your skin, right, to produce sweat. And that's a way in which the body can get rid of toxin. That's one of the ways in which it can detoxify you. Okay? Another way is by working with your kidneys. See, the kidneys filter the blood, and it removes a whole lot of nonsense that's floating around in our bloodstream, a lot of nonsense that we're eating and drinking. It gets filtered. And so in order to get rid of it from the body has to flush it with water. It's called urine. Okay? And you can usually tell how much waste is being removed based on how yellow or orange your urine is. Right? And so that is the power of water. Not only does it maintain, support, and sustain our organs, our entire body, but it actually cleanses us. It keeps us alive and it keeps us healthy, or at least it tries to, assuming you have enough of it. And when you don't have enough water, you're drinking juices and everything like that, what happens to your arteries? They get narrower, okay? They get narrower, right? So the heart needs a little bit more pressure to push it, right? And so we call those things, well, hypertension, or the developing stages or beginning stages of high blood pressure, right?
Mm.
And so all of these diseases that we're so concerned about are developing as a result of these this Western lifestyle that we've adopted.
Right.
Now, I'm not
Right.
saying don't ever drink juice, don't ever drink coffee. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you've got to understand, as you're drinking your juice, your milk, your tea, your coffee, whatever it may be, your body only needs water.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else, yeah, it tastes good, it looks good, it smells good. That's fine. But don't forget to put the right type of fuel or fluid inside of you, and that is water.
Yeah, water is a superfood, and
Oh
you
yeah.
know
Oh yeah.
it,
You can't live without it.
exactly. And what's so amazing, it was Dr. Africa. It was Dr. Leah Africa that said sometimes we get signals that we're hungry. We think that we're hungry, but actually our body is craving water. So we will
Yes.
grab food and eat, but our body is actually wanting to be hydrated. And
Oh
we
yeah.
and because the body's hungry, but it's not hungry for food, it's hungry for water.
Yes, you're exactly right. And I mean, look, the body will send you signals in the form of cravings, right? When it needs something. If you've ever seen, for example, a pregnant woman and she is craving, they crave chalk or, rust, they eat a lot of weird stuff like clay and everything like that.
Mhm.
That disease is called pica. And the way I've heard it explained is as the fetal child is developing, right? Much like an assembly line, right? The car, if you think of how cars were being built, the car gets here, the doors get put on, the car goes there, the engine gets put on, the car goes here, the tires get put on. Well, as the child that's growing inside of a woman, that fetal child is growing and developing, sometimes the body needs certain minerals that the mother just doesn't have enough of. And so what will happen is the body will send you craving signals for craving. So you see somebody eating rust. Maybe they need more iron.
Right.
You see somebody eating chalk. Maybe they need more calcium. And so the body's saying calcium, and it's going through everything that it's maybe tasted and noticed that there was some calcium in it. It's sending you those cravings. Like, it's
Right.
not saying
Right.
eat rust. It's saying give us iron. But
Right.
you interpret it as I have a craving for rust. And so the point being is just like the body does that for minerals, right? And vitamins and everything, particularly minerals. The body also does that for water, and it's called thirst, right? It's your
Right.
lips drying, right? That's a sign that, hey, brother, you've got to get some fluid in here. You've got to get something to drink in there. There's also dry skin. You're feeling lightheaded. You're not peeing as much,
Right.
or you can tell when you do pee, your urine is actually darker colored, so it's more of an orange color, right?
Right.
And believe it or not, your mood, your mental focus
Mm.
is directly impacted by the amount of water or fluids that you have in you, right? So you might be feeling tired and you don't know why. You ate well and you just don't understand what's going on. You haven't drank enough water,
I love water. Exactly.
right? And of course, when it gets bad, that, like, especially if you're somebody who constantly runs and constantly exercises and everything like that, you've got to remember you're sweating. You're sweating. You're not just sweating water, you're also sweating minerals. That's why things like Gatorade and those plant-based minerals are so important, because they give back
Right.
electrolyte. Well, but you're
Right.
also sweating a lot of water,
Right.
right? So you've got to put water in there. And so we just have to be able to understand that the body is such an intelligent machine, and it tells us what it needs. We ignore it, right? And we put band-aids on things that, whenever something doesn't work the way we want, instead of listening to the body, we are trained to seek a pill or a band-aid and put over it, instead of taking a moment and understanding what the body is telling us that it needs.
Right. Right. Well, my grandbaby is telling me it's time to go upstairs. Oh, Lord have mercy. But I want people that's watching, brother, I want to thank you for coming on. And he will be at the Mount Vernon Public Library Saturday, July 8th at 11 a.m. Come, we're going to continue this conversation, man. And I might ask the same questions, but I'm gonna have some more, and hopefully we have time to take questions from the people. But come out if you're in Westchester, Mount Vernon, wherever you at, and if you could get to the Mount Vernon Public Library on July 8th and come see Dr. Cedrick. He's going to be there live. We're going to have a great conversation. It's time from the mouth of babies. Yes. But absolutely come check us out. And Brother Cedrick, thank you as always, man, for taking this moment to come on the show. And I will see you on July 8th, man, God willing.
Yes, sir.
Have a blessed night, and we'll see each other July 8th. We'll talk before then anyway. But thank you for coming on the show, man, and so giving people insights to your book so they could come out on July 8th, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. And of course, if anybody wants a free PDF copy, a digital copy of the book, if you don't mind.
Yes. How can they get in touch with you, brother? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, my website is, thank you, by the way, Damon. My website is drced.com. That's 5 letters, drced.com. And if you want a free digital copy of this book where you can read on your phone or your tablet, just type in drced.com/webinar. So there's a webinar that plays, and if you want to get access to the book, there should be a button there. You can click it. I think you enter your email or something like that, and it should allow you to download a free copy of the book. So yes. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you for putting that up there. So I encourage anybody who, doesn't mind reading from their phone or their tablet or something to go there. Now, of course, if you did want the physical copy, which I just prefer, then you would get it from Amazon.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. Have a good night. And everybody have a good night, and we'll see everybody soon, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What food do you eat? You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. The food that we find most satisfying. The food that we find that sticks to our ribs. The food that we call down home. A food that we learn to eat in the quarters. And yet we dare say that we have escaped slavery. What kind of food do you eat? You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. What kind of food do you eat? You say soul food? Was that the food of African people? Slave food. What kind of food do you eat?